I'm Amy, sex educator, somatic sex and relationship coach, and sex shop owner.
And I'm April, VP of an international high-end pleasure products company and boss queen sex toy mogul. We're best friends who make our own rules about who we are as sexual beings.
With everything from how to be a badass in the bedroom to top tips for bringing your relationship to the next level, we have something just for you.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Don't forget to head on over to our website at shamelesssex.com for more. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com. Hello, everyone. We have been recording multiple podcasts from Kauai. And actually, wait, this is the first one? No. The one you heard last week, we were in Kauai. This one we're in Kauai, and the next one we're in Kauai. But we really weren't in Kauai for 3 weeks. It might sound like that. We wish we were. We wish we were, but that is not the case. We are actually in Kauai for
working on vacation.
Yes, it is a workcation and a momcation. We're celebrating the wonderful women that brought us into the world. So this podcast is with another podcaster. We love recording with podcasters. Is with Whitney from the Sexually Liberated Women podcast. And we will read more about her in her bio shortly. She is awesome. And this podcast is on reigniting and reclaiming your sexual fire. She is really well spoken and has a lot of great points. So do not miss out on this. So before we dive in, here are some testimonials. First off, everyone, if you have not written a review of our podcast, please go to iTunes and write a review of us. We love 5 stars, and it's very helpful to get our podcast out there. And sometimes we will read your reviews, and we actually read every single one for ourselves, but sometimes we read them on the air. So we really appreciate that. If you have not done so yet, please go to iTunes and review us. So here is a review from someone named Kitty. And Kitty said we could use their name. I have been listening to your podcast now for a long time, and I wanted to let you know how amazing, in caps, I think you are. Your podcast convinced me to finally begin therapy in May. I'm currently in both talk and EMDR therapy after battling mental illness and trauma my entire life, and I've started to take better care of myself and actually enjoy life again. The resources that you share, your experiences, and all of the wonderful co-hosts that you have had on have made my navigating my life so much easier and are making the world a better place. So thank you for being inspired, enlightened, kick-ass women. Woo! Thank you, Kitty. Awesome. Yeah, we've talked about EMDR on here a number of times. If you're feeling a little lost and like you EMDR is more if you have trauma. I tried EMDR. Well, you were actually talking to my mom about this last night. My mom did EMDR for some really intense sexual trauma from her childhood, and it was really beneficial. She was going once a week for 6 months, and it essentially cleared many years of sexual abuse. I went to EMDR, and I don't have deep, extreme trauma, so I didn't really experience much from it, but I think it's really helpful for people who have a lot of deep stuff. So I'm really glad for this listener that EMDR is working well for you. Testimonials, please go and write them. You can send us emails, but it's also really helpful on iTunes because that stays public and gets our information out there. And with that said, we have a blog now on our website. If you go to shamelesssex.com, we have a blog, just click blog. And we are now posting weekly blog posts. They'll have more photos of us, more information. We're actually answering sex questions on there now. So if you're not getting your sex questions answered on the air, go to our blog and we'll answer some on there as well. And we propose provocative questions there because we want it to be interactive. So that's a great place not to ask us sex questions. Please email sex questions or send it to our contact form on our website. But a great place to interact and let us know what you're thinking, what's going on, what worked for you, what didn't. So go check out our blog. We would love to share and interact with you. And our workshop is December 25th today. Oh my gatos, it's Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. And if you don't, then awesome for you. If you are someone that maybe wants to learn a bit more about how to be a motherfucking badass in the motherfucking bedroom, then please go to our website and check out our 4-week video series or 4 video series. You don't have to do it in 4 weeks. Workshop And it's called How to Be a Badass in the Bedroom. And it's 4 videos. They're under 30 minutes each. It's an online workshop, which means that you can do all directly from your own home. And you get to work directly with us because you have access to send us your direct sex questions or comments via email, and April and I will directly answer them for you throughout the course. And like I said, all work can be done at home, and there's all kinds of sexy homework and practices and things that you can do. And we even give away a free workshop on there, our online orgasm.
You can watch a little teaser video on our landing page. Go to shamelesssex.com. Check it out. It's like a little 1.5 minute teaser on what you'll get depending on which episode. But we do have a teaser.
And for the month of December, we were offering 20% off if you use code SHAMELESS20 in all caps. 20 is 20. It's not spelled out. So go and get it because if you're listening to this on the actual release date, you only have about a week left. What else before we dive in to the wonderful Evian Whitney? Margins Wine. We are in Hawaii right now. We did not bring any Margins Wine. What did we drink last night that was not very good? Let's not say the name, but we drank. What did you describe it as?
It was a chewy Cabernet that was really difficult. It felt like I was having a meal.
It was really heavy. Is that what you mean by chewy?
Yes, it lasts a long time on your palate.
She knows. I don't know my wine very well. Yeah, so it was really heavy, kind of hard to consume, especially after our delicious meal. And it was a moment when we actually did sit down with our moms and say, and then your mom was talking about how much she likes Margins Wine because she had it shipped out to Arkansas. But we were really wishing that we had one of Margins Wine's nice white, what's the name of the white wine again?
Chenin Blanc. And if you want to try it out for yourself, go to marginswine.com, use the code SHAMELESSSEX10. And if you buy 3 bottles, you'll get 10% off. If you choose to buy 6 bottles, maybe you're a fan already, or maybe you want to give it the gift for the new year, use the code SHAMELESSSEX15 and get 15% off 6 or more bottles. A pretty good deal. Or just sign up for her newsletter and learn about when she's going to have new releases because she only makes small batches. This is not heavily produced wine. It's in small batches, people. So get it while it's hot. Hotta.
So Chip, I have a question for you. If you could get any holiday present for me in anything you could choose, what would it be?
The gift of learning about my vulva more.
So would I be showing you or?
Well, I guess I already have that gift because I have OMGS access.
And that wasn't even my intention.
Intentional. But there's so many, that's the gift that keeps on giving. Because education, I feel like I have the power to buy whatever I want right now, which is great. Slowly but surely, not the timeshare they were offering me in Kauai, but other things. And so the gift of education is, I think, I like to learn, but it's not boring. Learning about your body is probably the most powerful thing you can do for yourself, as Evian talks about.
So you don't want a pony?
No, maybe a baby animal.
And a mini horse?
No, smaller. I don't have room for a mini horse.
One of those pigs that never gets big?
Maybe a sea monkey.
Those are tiny. They're like invisible. They're like sea sperm.
I want to pet my sea monkey.
You cannot pet a sea monkey. All right. Anyways, we're going to work on our gift exchange because what we've given to each other is this wonderful gift to Hawaii with our wonderful mothers who birthed us, and we're celebrating this. And now it's going to be an annual mom trip, probably in different locations, although April's mom does not want to go to Asia, but we're working on that. At any rate, let's get into the podcast. But before we do, what April was saying, OMG, yes, stands for oh my God, yes. You'll hear on maybe the last podcast or the next podcast about how we are going, we don't have time to talk about this right now, but we're bringing up at dinner and going to show April's mom for the first time OMGS so she can learn some new techniques to touch her vulva because OMGS is awesome. It is educational, but it is also a great, very tasteful platform to learn how to add more new sexy tricks on the menu in terms of how to touch a vulva. So if you're someone who already knows how to touch your vulva and you just want to enhance the experience and add more techniques in the menu and things that might potentially bring you more orgasms, more powerful orgasms, this is for you. If you're a vulva admirer, this is also for you because it can teach you how to touch vulvas in ways that they do not show you in porn. So learn more, go to omgyes.com. And if you do /shameless, you get $5 off of season 1. teach you all kinds of new things, and it is all available to do online. And so this is something, it is December 25th, right? So if you maybe,
with your family.
well, and if you also fucked up and didn't get the holiday present for someone, you can go buy this right now and it's actually available. You don't have to wait for shipping. So just saying. Okay. That was a lot. Let me read you the bio of our wonderful guest. So this episode, as we said, is Reigniting and Reclaiming Your Sexual Fire by Evian Whitney. So Evian Whitney is a sex educator, sex activist, and sexuality doula who helps facilitate, educate, and hold space for women and femme-identifying folks who want to step out of the sexual shame and into erotic empowerment. She's the host of the Sexually Liberated Woman podcast and the creator of the wildly successful Sensual Selfie Challenge on Instagram. You can find out more about Evian's work at sexloveliberation.com and see her brazenly showing off her sexuality on Instagram at Evian Whitney, which is EVYAN.WHITNEY. Ready?
Yeah.
Set?
Go.
All right, everyone, it's podcast time as promised. Let's dive on in. As we said in the introduction, we have Evian Whitney, and you already know a lot about Evian. And I'll just tell you a fun fact of how we discovered Evian. I'm going to give a shout out to Madison, our awesome intern, who is a big fan of Evian's work and her podcast. And so our intern, Madison, actually told us that we should have her on here.
I think we should call them executive assistants.
Oh, I like that.
Executive assistant Madison.
Say it in that voice again.
Executive assistant Madison.
Cute. It's perfect. Great. So Madison, we love you. And thank you for bringing us Evian. And so we already read the bio. Evian, tell us more about yourself. What is a sexual doula?
Yeah, I call myself a sexuality doula, which is someone who helps facilitate people through the transition of sexual shame, sexual trauma, fears associated with their sexuality, and into sexual liberation. And I like the term doula because, first of all, it feels a little bit more resonant with me than the word coach. Coach just feels really masculine to me, and it doesn't really go with my vibe as the way that I teach and the way that I facilitate people. And I like doula because doula is really about working with people through transitions. We have death doulas, birth doulas, abortion doulas. And so the transition that I work with people through is that transition from sexual shame into erotic empowerment, sexual liberation, whatever that looks like for them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I listened to one of your episodes. Actually, I listened to 2 of your episodes.
Cool.
And,
which ones did you listen to?
I listened to the one, it was about, I don't remember the title, but you were falling in love with your sex toy again. That you had the shame about, you had to learn to get off with your own body, and you did, but then there was kind of some shame about using your sex toy.
Yeah.
And then you brought it back, and I just loved what you said. And I think you would have loved, you should listen, April, you would love that, what she said about it. And can you share a little bit about that? Because I think that we get a lot of questions from our listeners about that. What if I get addicted to my vibrator? Is it a bad thing if I need to use this, or, can you share a little bit about that part of your journey?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I first came into my own sexual liberation journey from this place of hearing the misinformation about being addicted to your vibrator, and also this pleasure hierarchy of real sex and good sex and sacred sex is the pure sex, the sex that you have with someone else, or the sex that you have with your hands rather than a battery operated device. And so I certainly bought into that. A lot of the people that I was listening to at the time were certainly preaching that. And then as of recently, I'd say within the last year or so, I was noticing that through this model of I only get off with my hands, and I'm only allowed to, sometimes I would even extend to porn. I wouldn't watch porn because I should be able to have my own erotic imagination and be able to conjure up these images on my own and get, really aroused that way. And I noticed that through that belief system, I wasn't masturbating. I wasn't masturbating nearly as much as I wanted to. And I ended up getting a vibrator again as a way to bring back that practice, because for me, masturbation is not just about like getting off. It's also about creating a relationship with myself in a sexual way. And so that to me is like very self-caring, very self-loving. And it was frustrating that I wasn't doing that. And so I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to buy a vibrator. I'm going to see how it goes. And it's been the best decision that I've made recently in my sex life, because I feel like I'm finally free to explore myself and my sexuality without this notion of pleasure hierarchy or like sacred sex and all of that stuff.
We've talked about the hierarchy of pleasure and how there is no, I mean, if you can get off one way one day, amazing, good for you. And then something else changes the next day and works for you that day. And also I've outed shame around thinking that I'm addicted to my vibrator many times. Wait, what vibrator do you prefer to use?
Ooh, I only use one. So fun fact, I get a lot of people who want me to use their sex toys, as I'm sure you guys do. You guys probably get lots of emails when people are like, try our new sex toy. But I'm like, oh, tried and true. Like if I find a good one, I'm going to stick with that one until it dies. And so the first one that I bought is the only one that I use, and it's the WeVibe Touch. And I love that one because it's like, you can plug it in, it's wireless. And yeah, it's waterproof, which is great. The first time I ever used it was in the bathtub, which was an incredible experience. So yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
That's that little blue, really thuddy one, right? It's like really rumble.
It's like purple, and it has like a little weird like lip. Okay. Yeah, it has like a little like indent, so it fits like really, really well on the.
I know what one you're talking about. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. They have it at Pure Pleasure. Yeah. Okay. Pure Pleasure, everyone. Shameless shout out. 15% off with coupon code ShamelessPP in all caps. Okay, is this an example? I mean, you're talking about transitions as a sexual doula. Is this an example of a transition of someone being stuck in shame, of having one story that's limiting their ability to express and live the sex life they want, and the transition into another realm of more freedom? Is that what you're speaking to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like using the sex toy as an example, and I've actually had this happen before with many of my clients who are wanting to shift the narratives they have around attaining orgasm, achieving pleasure, having sex with themselves in a certain way. And they're like, I feel so much shame, and I feel so much, so many like limits that are holding me back from having the kind of sex life I want to have. And I feel stuck, like I can't move forward. I know that I want my sex life to look like this, or I know that I want my self-pleasure experiences to look like this, but shame is getting in the way, or I'm feeling really dogged down by this idea that sex should be pure and sacred without sex toys and porn and all of those things. And so clients will come to me as a way to help them work through those old stories, and I help transition them into new stories about how they want to achieve their orgasm, how they want to have relationships with their partners, and also how they want to express themselves sexually. Because my belief is that like we are not just sexual beings within the context of sex, we're sexual beings outside of that context. And so my view is I really try to come from a holistic point of view of like, I want you to see yourself as a sexual being, whether you're like giving head or walking down the street, you know, like I think that that's one of the things that has been missing from even sex education or just our conversations around sex, is only seeing ourselves in this really compartmentalized way when it comes to our sexualities.
You are hitting like a nail on the head.
A vibrator on the
clit. Vibrator on the vulva.
Not right on the head, on the side, on the left-hand upper quadrant.
And we get a lot of emails. I mean, I would say on a daily, weekly, a lot of emails in general, but there's a lot of female identified folks out there who feel disconnected from their sexuality. They feel disconnected from, yes, their partners, but a lot of times that is also in line with their sexuality, and you kind of tuning into that. So do you have any, what do you think? Why do you think this is common amongst a lot of female identified folks?
I think our culture historically has not valued women's sexuality enough. And I think because of that, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of taboo. Every single client that I've worked with, and I've had like hundreds of sessions at this point, like they are all coming to me from this place of, I feel sexual shame. And sometimes they can't even like identify where that shame came from. Like, it's not like they had this experience where someone actually looked at them and shamed them for their sexuality. They just somehow, some way, like woke up with these beliefs, and they're like, I don't know why it is, but I feel like I shouldn't touch my body, or I don't know why it is, but I feel like I have to perform my sexuality for the male gaze, you know? And so like, I mean, in session, I try to like, you know, piece those things together and make connections and say like, well, let's figure out where that origin story is coming from, because I believe that we can trace those things down to like, maybe not the exact place that we heard them from, but it all comes back to our culture. You know, I mean, there's so many parts of our culture that don't value that part of us.
And there's so many people. I talk to people regularly, and obviously I have a podcast and I sell sex toys and all these things, and they're more open, but I have women in their 30s that I've talked to that have never had an orgasm, 18-year-old women that I've spoken with that have never had an orgasm. And I am not a doula. I'll just kind of ask them like, what do you like? What's happening? And it's so, to me, you're connecting to yourself through pleasure is one of the most harmonious ways to like tune into you. It's so important, but I just wanted to share that. So
yeah, I agree. And I actually had a client a couple years ago who was in her 50s, and she raised kids. Her kids were in college. She was married for 25 years, and she had no idea who she was as a sexual woman, had no idea. She had a weird relationship with her body, a really weird relationship with masturbation. She never masturbated. She didn't know how to masturbate. And unfortunately, that's really common in a culture that has really demonized and stigmatized sex, and particularly women's sexuality. You know, I mean, I could go on a tangent about this. It gets me really upset when I think about like how masculine.
Hysteria. You're going into a hysterics.
Crazy with wild women.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I talk about this a lot in session about how like, because so many of my clients are like, I don't know what's wrong with me, you know, and they internalize this and they feel that there is something fundamentally wrong with them, that they're broken. And I'm like, you're not broken. The system is broken. Like, we are in a system that has placed male sexuality as a default, you know, even down to male sexual bodies. And so my work is really about helping people unlearn those things, heal that intergenerational trauma to the best of my ability and their ability, and then also just give them tools for expressing their sexuality in ways that are counter to white supremacist patriarchal capitalism.
Yeah. So powerful.
And yes, in you know, on that with the patriarchal capitalism, and how about,
sounds like I'm talking to you right now a little bit.
I know. Sounds familiar, right? So this is our newest host on the Shameless Sex podcast. Well, and then what about just also like the caretaking culture? You know, women as the caretakers and men as the receivers, and it's happening in this like subtle way. Even if for a lot of folks who feel like I'm an empowered woman and I got my shit together, and you know, I do whatever I want for myself, and yet there are ways that women are taught, like in these subtle ways, to caretake men's emotions.
Totally.
In hetero relationships. Yes, very much speaking to hetero relationships. Like, and an example was a recent story from a client that I had who was just dating, and this person that she's dating, this man that she's dating, asked if she was sleeping with anyone else, and she felt so bad being honest and transparent with the fact that she was, because she was afraid of hurting his emotions. And then we do this in so many ways. And I know that it's not just women doing it with men in heterosexual relationships. It's going a lot of different ways. And yet I think it's a huge thing where a lot of us don't even know, like, that we're caretaking to make sure that we don't lose the love, that we're not too much. You know, we don't want to upset the system, because then we're the crazy hysterical woman and all hell breaks loose.
I talk about my relationship with my husband a lot, because I feel like that's been one of the biggest places that I have learned and grown as a sexual person, which, I mean, makes sense because we've been together for so long. But I told him I won't say the get-go, because it was a process. We had to get there. But pretty shortly after we got together, I was like, I don't want to be your emotions doula. Like, I'm not going to help you figure out how to feel your fifis. Like, that's not me, you know, like I will hold space for you and I will support you as you figure that out. But I have way too much important work to do to be the one that's holding you by the hand, guiding you into emotional intelligence and emotional connection, whatever that looks like. And so, I think, and that I say all of that with transparency that like, I'm still really bad at that. Like I'm a chronic caretaker, I'm definitely the person that will try to help people and solve their problems. But ultimately, the more that I put that energy back into myself, the more that I have healthy boundaries, the better I am able to not just serve myself, but also serve my community,
So is a lot of the work that you're teaching people that you're working with how to, and by the way, you say you work with pre-erotic women, and when you say WOMXN, can you explain to our listeners what this means and what women with the X means in there?
Yeah. So I like the term pre-erotic because it kind of goes along with the term pre-orgasmic. Like I don't believe that people are like incapable of having orgasms. I like the word pre-erotic as a way to say like I believe that you are already sexual. We just need to find ways to release that. We need to find ways for you to give yourself permission to be erotic. And so, pre-erotic just is a little bit more, I think, gentle on people who have for so long seen themselves as the issue and have really internalized their own sexual dysfunction. I mean, I was certainly that person, my sex life hasn't always been gravy. And so, I like the term pre-erotic because it gives people a little bit more space to know that like healing is possible. Like you're not broken. You're just in a phase where it's pre, and pretty soon it will be post. And as for women with an X instead of an E or an A, that is more of an intersectional word that is meant to include trans women, non-binary femmes. And so it's really important for me in the work that I do that I'm not just only speaking to cis women, that trans women, non-binary femmes know that like this is work that I do for them as well.
Mm-hmm. So very inclusive work for I guess we usually still call it female identified folks then.
Women identified, femme identified. Yeah. I don't work with men because I love women and femmes so much, but but yeah.
Good, we need you.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Men need sexual liberation too. Like men have a lot of sexual hangups that they also need to unpack because I mean, the patriarchy doesn't just mess with women, it messes with all of us, and I'm really hopeful that more men will step up and do that work for other men because it's really important.
I think it's shifting slowly. The more we are outing some of these patriarchal people that have been in positions of power and these kind of, obviously in the last even 2 years, I think it's shifting. It's just always slow. Slowly. Yes. On a different note, we get so much, and I'm sure you do as well, inquiries from folks, especially partnered folks, that want to reignite and reclaim their sexual fire, whether it's within themselves, within their relationships. We get a lot of inquiries all the time, again, from listeners. I just want to hear your top tips for kind of reigniting that sexual fire.
I get that a lot too. Thankfully, a lot of the clients that come to me, they're not coming from this place of like, I want to make my sex life better. Like they have an understanding that in order for their partnered sex to be great, they need to figure out what's going on with them first and foremost. And so my kind of counterintuitive tip for folks, and I've seen this work really well, is like, stop focusing on your sexual relationship with your partner, focus on the sexual relationship you have with yourself, because there's so much wisdom and so much knowledge that can be garnered through the experience of having a solo sexual relationship. And I've seen that work out really beautifully in my own personal life. I've seen that work out really beautifully in my clients' lives where they're saying like, okay, so I'm going to stop seeing myself as only a sexual being when I'm in the context of sex with my partner. And I'm going to instead have more of a consistent and fluid idea of who I am as a sexual person, as an individual, not within this, sexual relationship only, but as an individual. And I noticed that when we put more emphasis and give more spaciousness to that part, it helps free up and even bring new energy into our partnered relationships, So I'm always telling people like, okay, you want your partnered sex life to look really great. How about like, what's your masturbation looking like? Like, how do you masturbate, and like, what sort of things do you do to take care of your sexual self outside of your partnered sexual relationship?
So my question about that is that I feel that a lot of folks who are in partnered relationships would say object with, well, it's hard to do it when, especially if they live with their partner, they share a bed with them, if that's like where they're primarily masturbating. And so what would be your advice for them to still dedicate time to their sexual selves when they're in such a closely committed partnership where they maybe don't have a lot of alone time?
Bathroom.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Shower time.
Shower. I mean,
Lunch
the thing
break.
that I tell people is that, like, I think it's possible to make that time. I really do. I think that if it's a priority to us, if that relationship is something that we really value, we will make the time. But realistically, yeah. I mean, I've had lots of people who've asked me, like, I'm a mom with 3 kids and I'm working full time as well as taking care of my partner too. Like, how in the world am I ever going to have space for myself as a sexual person? And if masturbation isn't a thing that feels good for them or they don't have time, one of my biggest tips is to instigate or create a practice of sexual self-care. And for me, sexual self-care is just the practice of you honoring and acknowledging yourself as a sexual being outside of a sexual context. And so obviously sexual self-care can be masturbation. I mean, I was just speaking my excitement about the We Vibe, which is fantastic. But I think that it's, as I said before, I think that we have a very linear idea of who we are as sexual beings, like that we're only sexual if we're in a sexual context. And with sexual self-care, it's about honoring and acknowledging the sexual part of you outside of that sexual context. And so, and that sexual self-care can look like anything. It can look like taking a bath. It could look like drinking a cup of tea. It can look like going for a walk. What's most important about sexual self-care is not so much the act, but the intention behind it. And so if I show up to like taking a bath, not just to, relax and to have a moment of alone time with myself, but also to relax my sexual body and to have alone time luxuriating in my senses, suddenly that feels more like sexual self-care. It feels more sensual. It feels more erotic.
That's something that I'm very masculine in a lot of ways. So I try to, and Amy and I talk about it. We're like, let's wear dresses so we don't feel so masculine sometimes. And I do. I mean, I try to tap into my femininity as much as possible. And one thing that I do for the sexual self-care, even if it's for myself, is I will put on some lingerie and just lingerie that I know I feel good in, especially when I'm not feeling like just connected to how sexy I am. I'm like, come on, I can do this. And I put on what I call my stripper heels. And I'll just like sometimes just kind of gaze or dance in the mirror and just really try to connect that way. And it has been helpful. And that's just for me, obviously. But I don't know. I think that everyone probably has something that they do that they can tap into. And you said drinking a cup of tea. And that just brings me to some of your photos.
I was just about to say, sensual self or sexual self-care for me is taking sensual selfies. Yeah.
So tell our listeners about this because, okay, your Instagram, I mean, holy shiitakes. The photos are not only very sensual and sexy, but also just super empowering. Like it's sexy and strong. So tell us about this thing called Sexting Myself.
Yeah, Sexting Myself is a workshop that I created a couple years ago that is a workshop that teaches people how to use sensual self-portraiture as a way to liberate their sexualities, as a way to celebrate their bodies. And originally it was created as just like a digital course that people could work through. But this year, actually in 2018, I have been teaching that like all over the country, which has been really fun, like in person, just like making these really beautiful, what I call pop-up selfie booths, where it's got flowers and candles and people can just go in, take off all their clothes, put on a flower crown and take some sensual selfies with themselves. And for me, it's not just about like looking hot in a photo. It's about, again, what I was speaking to earlier about sexual self-care, like acknowledging and celebrating yourself as a sexual being and particularly a sexual individual. A lot of the women who have come into these workshops are like, wow, I've never actually seen myself as a sexual individual. I'm usually only sexy when I'm performing it for the male gaze, or I usually only feel erotic when I'm sexting my guy friend or the guy that I'm smashing or whatever, And so the sensual self-portraiture gives them an opportunity to express themselves, celebrate themselves, and acknowledge the fact that they are sexual beings on their own terms, in their own practice. And so I always tell people that, like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with sharing a sexy selfie with some person that you're having sex with. I think that that's fine and that's beautiful. But I also think that we need to make room for the individual celebrations of our sexualities. And for me, I mean, most of us are taking selfies. I think this is just one quick and easy way to incorporate sexual self-care, and also just, like, liberating our sexual expressions in ways that feel a little bit more doable.
You're not closeting it and sharing it. And it's just, I was thinking about this the other day because April, we have not put very many photos of ourselves out in the public sphere of us in like half naked or in lingerie or anything like that.
Just our album cover that everyone sees.
Oh yeah, our album cover. well, so the album cover, but
Dad's always like, "You're half naked all over."
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's true. We do have an album cover. We haven't done a lot of this, and but we have taken photos of ourselves in bathing suits, and it's so interesting that there's like this idea of context and intention that really does make a difference, but that I think that there still is, I would say I don't know. I think we should do more of it because I like, breaking the mold a little bit and kind of pushing the envelope, because also I think it just makes a statement of, this is my right. This is my freedom. This is my body. This is my expression. And if you like it, then you can, be here to witness it. And if you don't, you also don't have to.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I probably would have never done 5 years ago, but now I've basically found some of my power and the feelings of worthiness, which I didn't really have before. So I would be willing to participate in that, Amy.
Oh, right. So we need to take your course. Is it a course that you offer? How do you work for this part?
So it's a digital course, and I only open it a few times a year. There's a way for you to do that online, and there's also a way for me to do it in person, teach it in person. And in person is really fun. I love doing the digital version because we can create like a really beautiful community. And I have a special like group where people can share their uncensored selfies with other women and femmes who are taking it, which to me, that's like one of the most valuable parts of teaching this class and this workshop, is not just seeing the images that people or giving people permission to take these photos, but also giving them permission to share them and have those images be shared and witnessed by the female gaze, which I think is really, really interesting. It's a totally different experience when you are witnessed and celebrated as a sexual being by a woman, by a feminine identified person.
So this episode's coming out on Christmas Day, which is the 25th of December. When is your next 2018? Just in case you're listening in 2020, my future self is saying. When is your next upcoming digital? Because we have listeners all over the world. Class workshop.
Yeah, I actually don't have those dates for me right now, mostly because I'm in vacay mode. But the best way for people to know like when that's going to be launching is to sign up to my newsletter.
Okay. Sexloveliberation.com.
Yeah, /newsletter. And that's where they can like get all of those updates about when it's going to be coming out. And I have loose plans to launch it again in March of 2019, but I don't want to put anything out there until I know for sure. I will say that the stuff that's been coming out lately about Instagram and the sexual solicitation policy is really putting a damper on my ability to do this kind of work.
The FOSTA.
Right, the FOSTA SESTA thing. And then Facebook recently rolled out some new policies about nudity and all of those things. And
even the words that you use.
Right.
I saw people typing the word tantra and they had to put the @ symbol for the A. I was like, you fucking kidding me? Really?
Yeah, actually, I've censored sex and sexuality and sexual out of my Instagram bio because just having the word sex based on Facebook's sexual solicitation policy means that I'm sexually soliciting.
Is that what we're doing?
I don't at this point, I don't give a fuck about Facebook. I think
I don't care either. I'm like, if I'm sexually soliciting, like whatever, but I also don't want to lose this really important community that I've built, that would be.
I have this like new biased opinion because we went to the Motherfucker Awards, which our friend friends put on, Chris Ryan, who wrote Sex at Dawn, and then Kyle Tierman, our friend who has a podcast. They put on this award show, and they're trying to make an annual thing where they gave away awards to all the motherfuckers who are fucking over the mother. So like large
Facebook was a big one.
And Facebook was one of them. And so it was like a comedy. It was a red carpet comedy, a satirical comedy show where comedians went on and won the award. You know, Chase Bank was one of them, Coca-Cola, and for different like fire, earth, air, water, all these different categories. And I think that Facebook won the award for fucking with our reality the most. Yeah.
Taking human souls.
Soul.
That like our spirit. No, our spirit.
Yeah, spirit. Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah. It's super accurate. My social media, Facebook is so difficult for me to even tap in because people use it. I think they abuse it as well. They use it as like this really terrible platform, but I love what you're doing. That's positive. And I get like wanting to maintain that community.
But Instagram's still allowing you to do.
Owned by Facebook.
Right?
But,
yeah, they're owned by Facebook. Oh. And so we're actually seeing within the last few weeks, we've been seeing a lot of people whose like profiles are being deleted without warning. People who are losing like 500,000 of their followers just overnight because Facebook has flagged them or Instagram has flagged them as being sexually solicitous. So it's scary times, which is a long way of me saying that like that's one of the reasons why I don't know when this class is going to be out because I want to protect myself and also protect the people who are involved. So.
Well, we would love to support. So when you get that info, let us know and we will shout out. Because I'm sure we'll have some interested listeners that would love to participate in that. But in the meantime, so obviously you do a lot of work with I love what you're doing. Like you're, a sex activist and you do doula work. So how can people work with you if they want to do that? And we talked about your ebooks and online workshops a little bit. And please tell us how people can work with you and also access those things because you have a lot of different resources. So
yeah, definitely. So they can go on my website, sexloveliberation.com. That's where they can find everything they need to know about me, the work that I do, how they can hire me as their sexuality doula if they want. And then also if they go to sexloveliberation.com/shop is where they'll find my book. I have a sensuality course that is really popular for folks who may not be able to make the investment in working with me now, but really want to start working in the realm of their sensual bodies and being able to come back home to themselves. It's like one of the best resources that I've made for people to do that in a really gentle way. So yeah, those are the two places that they can find me.
Awesome. And then do you have any final words of advice to leave our listeners with? Anything that you want, if you could just give them a nugget or two where if that's all they left with, what would it be?
Two things are coming to mind. One, take a sexy selfie just for you, and challenge yourself to take the selfie and not share it with anyone. Just take it for you. Take it for your gaze, for your pleasure. And then the other thing is practice sexual self-care. Do something daily, maybe a couple of times daily that honors and celebrates your sexual individuality and your sexual autonomy. And that doesn't have to look like masturbation. It doesn't even have to look like sexy stuff. It can just look like something that gently celebrates and acknowledges who you are as a sexual being.
April, we have homework. We need to do these things. We're on vacation. Have you been sexual? Have you been doing any sexual self-care on this vacation?
No, because I share a room with my mom. Showered. 1, 2, 3, showered. But I could. That shower is really small for the sexual self-care though. You could barely turn around. I could barely bend over without hitting the side. Bro, my shower. I could use this bathtub. I'll put a do not disturb sign on my room.
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I love this. We have so much more. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and everyone go check out, you have two places to go. Go to the Instagram. And I'm going to spell it too. It's EVYAN.WHITNEY. That's for Evion's Instagram profile. And then the website is sexloveliberation.com. You won't regret it. I promise. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. And just want to do another last minute shout out because, we're not assuming that you all celebrate Christmas. I'm a quarter Jewish, so I got to celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas. And some people don't celebrate holidays at all. But if you are someone who celebrates the holidays and you did not get that lovely gift that you want for the holidays, that's fine because you can gift yourself what you deserve. And we have talked about the horoscope line from Bijou, which we absolutely love. It is a sweet little kit that is $40. It comes with a beautiful little gem necklace that's related to your zodiac sign, also a finger vibe, and a little clip balm that is related to your zodiac sign, either earth, air, wind, or fire. It's adorable. It's all natural in terms of women-owned company. If you can hear April, we're sharing a mic, so that's. But because you are so special, because you deserve what you want, we usually do 15% off. The discount is actually 20% off with code ALLABOUTME in caps. That's right, you heard that. All About Me in caps. You can go to purepleasureshop.com and enter that in for the horoscope line, and you get 20% off. Deep breath. All right. Thank you so much,
Evian, when we're in Portland, we should hang.
Yeah. When are you guys coming out to Portland?
We need to come out there for a work trip
soon. Probably spring 2019. So We'll hit you up. Hopefully you're there. And if you cruise down south ever, let us know. But you're an absolute joy. Beautiful, amazing human. Thank you for the work you do. I think our listeners are going to really eat this episode up, and definitely check out Evian's podcast, check out her website, and her Instagram. Check out her sexy selfies. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday. Aloha and ciao for now.
Don't forget to head on over to our website at shamelesssex.com for more. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com.